What if you walked up a familiar, quiet hill in your hometown, expecting to find a fallen star, but instead, a pulsing red light revealed a 10-foot-tall nightmare staring back at you? What if it wasn't just the sheer terror of what you saw that haunted you, but a toxic, metallic stench that physically poisoned you, leaving your family violently ill for weeks? Today we're looking at a case that blurs the terrifying line between true crime, Cold War conspiracy, and the deeply paranormal. Dim the lights, double-check the locks on your doors, and whatever you do, don't go wandering into the woods tonight. It's roughly 7:15 p.m. on September 12, 1952. The air in the tiny, isolated town of Flatwoods, West Virginia, is crisp and biting. Three local boys brothers, Edward and Fred May, ages 6 and 12, along with their 10-year-old friend, Tommy Heyer, playing football on the Flatwoods Elementary School lawn. Twilight is setting in, casting long shadows across the grass. Suddenly, the sky above them tears open. A brilliant, pulsing streak of red and silver light violently cuts across the darkening sky, but it doesn't act like a shooting star. It slows down. It arcs with deliberate control, and then it seems to crash land on a high ridge overlooking the town of property known to locals as the Fisher Farm. The boys are terrified, but adrenaline takes over. They sprint off the school lawn and run straight to the May household. Bursting through the door, they tell Edward and Fred's mother, Kathleen, that a UFO just crashed on the hill. Kathleen, a pragmatic woman, thinking it might be a downed pilot in need of help, or perhaps a meteorite, grabs a flashlight. As they step outside, they are joined by 17-year-old National Guardsman Eugene Lemon and his tracking dog. Together, this makeshift search party begins the steep, mile-long trek up the dark Appalachian Hill. As they get closer to the crest, the environment shifts. The temperature seems to inexplicably drop. A thick, unnatural mist begins to roll through the trees, clinging to their ankles, and Eugene's dog, who had bounded confidently ahead into the darkness, suddenly lets out a blood-curdling yelp. The dog sprints back past them, fleeing all the way down the hill to the house with its tail between its legs, absolutely terrified. Something is waiting for them at the top. The sheer terror of what they are about to illuminate with that flashlight is legendary. But as you'll soon see, it's the bizarre, physical sickness that ravaged their bodies afterward that turns this ghost story into a horrifying medical mystery. Eugene Lemon steps up to the front of the group. He's a National Guardsman, trained, steady, used to the woods. But as they crest the hill, his hands begin to shake. Through the thick, pungent mist, they see it. About 50 feet away, an enormous, glowing sphere rests on the ground. It is pulsating with a dull, red light, illuminating the clearing in a sinister, bloody hue. The air around them suddenly becomes suffocating. It is filled with a sickeningly sweet, metallic odor that smells vaguely of burning sulfur and hot wiring. It burns their nostrils and stings their eyes. To understand the sheer, paralyzing panic setting in, you have to remember the era. It's 1952. The Cold War is at its absolute peak. Air raid drills are a daily reality for these kids. The immediate fear running through Kathleen May's mind wasn't necessarily aliens, it was the very real terror that the Soviet Union had just dropped an toxic weapon right in their quiet West Virginia backyard. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing, hissing sound like a massive intake of steam echoes from the darkness to their left. Eugene snaps his flashlight away from the glowing orb and toward the noise, illuminating the thick branches of a massive oak trees. There, hovering just off the ground beneath the branches, is a creature straight out of hell. It is massive, at least 10 feet tall. Its face is a glowing, blood-red circle, set deep inside a massive, dark, spade-shaped, cowl-like, the ace of spades, behind its head. Inside that red face, two beam-like eyes pierce through the darkness. The body is just as unnatural. It appears to be encased in what looks like a dark green, metallic skirt with heavy, vertical pleats. It has no discernible legs, and its arms, if you can call them that, are spindly, ending in twisted, claw-like appendages. For a split second, nobody moves. The creature slowly glides toward them. It doesn't walk. It floats over the uneven ground, letting out another mechanical, deafening hiss as it moves, as if it's sliding on an invisible rail. Panic erupts. Eugene drops the flashlight, letting it roll into the dirt. Kathleen May screams, grabs her boys by their jackets, and the entire group sprints blindly down the treacherous, rocky hillside in pitch blackness. They tear through briars and trip over roots, driven by pure survival instinct. They don't stop until they reach the safety of the May house, slamming the door, locking it, and frantically drawing the blinds. Lee Stewart would bravely venture up that same hill alone just hours later. He wouldn't find the monster, But he would discover two chilling pieces of physical evidence in the dirt that proved these witnesses weren't just seeing things. The moment Kathleen secures the house, she runs to the telephone. She calls the local authorities, reaching Sheriff Robert Carr and Elise Stewart, a reporter and owner of the local newspaper, the Braxton Democrat. When Stewart arrives at the May household, he walks into a scene of total medical chaos. Eugene Lemon is violently ill, vomiting and convulsing on the floor. The boys are terrified, complaining that their throats are swelling closed, their eyes burning and watering profusely. Kathleen is pale and struggling to breathe. Stewart realizes this is not a prank. Armed with a gun and a heavy-duty flashlight, he decides to hike up to the Fisher farm himself in the dead of night. When he reaches the crest of the hill, the glowing orb is gone. The 10-foot-tall creature is nowhere to be found, but the overwhelming, toxic stench remains. Stewart noted in his writing that the smell was so deeply metallic and unnatural, it physically burned the back of his throat just standing there. He secures the area, and when morning breaks, local investigators return in the daylight to find the proof. In the exact spot where the group claimed the glowing sphere had rested, there were two massive, parallel skid marks etched deeply into the dirt, as if a heavy, track-based craft had landed and taken off. Even more disturbing was the thick, black, oily substance coating the ground and the leaves of the oak tree, bizarre chemical residue that local authorities simply couldn't identify. But the most damning evidence of all wasn't found in the dirt on the hill. It was documented in the medical charts, with multiple terrified witnesses, physical ground traces, and documented medical trauma. You'd think the military would take this seriously. Instead, their official explanation was so wildly absurd, it sparked a cover-up conspiracy that rages to this very day. For weeks following the encounter, Kathleen, Eugene, and the boys suffered from severe, debilitating symptoms. We're talking severe nasal irritation, swelling of the throat and vocal cords, violent vomiting, and convulsions. The local doctor who treated them, Dr. Thomas, made a chilling observation. He noted that their afflictions perfectly matched the medical profile of one specific, horrifying trauma: mustard gas exposure. Whatever they encountered on that hill didn't just scare them. It physically radiated them. It deployed a chemical defense mechanism that poisoned American citizens on American soil. Within days, the story of the Flatwoods Monster went global. National television networks and radio broadcasters descended on the tiny West Virginia town, and soon after, the U.S. Air Force arrived. Through their notorious UFO investigative branch, known as Project Blue Book, plainclothes military investigators questioned the May family and examined the site. And then, the government released its official conclusion to the public. The Air Force claimed that the pulsing red light the boys saw in the sky, just a simple meteor passing through the atmosphere. The glowing red orb on the hill, simply the red flashing beacons of a nearby naval aircraft shining through the fog, and the 10-foot-tall, metallic, hovering nightmare that hissed at them and sprayed them with a chemical toxin. The official government report concluded that the terrified locals had merely been startled by a barn owl perched on a branch. They claimed its eyes reflected the beam of Eugene's flashlight, and the green metallic skirt was just the illusion of foliage shadows falling across the brush below the bird. As for the sickness, the government waved it away as mass hysteria. The witnesses were absolutely outraged. Kathleen May famously retorted to the press that she had lived in the country her entire life. She owned a farm, she knew the woods, and she knew exactly what an owl looked like. And it wasn't a 10-foot-tall machine that smelled like burning sulfur and melted the grass. Renowned paranormal investigator Ivan T. Sanderson also visited the site shortly after the incident. After interviewing the witnesses and examining the evidence, he concluded that the group had likely encountered an extraterrestrial probe machine or a biomechanical entity sent to observe, which deployed a noxious exhaust or defense gas when startled by the search party. So, what really happened on September 12, 1952? Skeptics maintain the AOL theory to this day, arguing that fear, darkness, and adrenaline can drastically warp human perception. They suggest the metallic smell could have been a localized pocket of swamp gas, or an unrelated, undocumented chemical spill. But for those who were there, the truth is immovable. Eugene Lemon suffered from extreme nightmares and anxiety for the rest of his life, deeply traumatized by what he saw. The May family never backed down from their story, enduring years of public mockery, yet remaining fiercely, undeniably consistent in their descriptions of the creature. If it was a Soviet craft, why did it hover in the West Virginia woods and vanish without a trace? If it was an extraterrestrial entity, was it repairing its ship? Was the foul-smelling gas a deliberate weapon, or merely the toxic exhaust of an engine not built for our atmosphere? Before we close this case file, consider this timeline. The Flatwoods incident occurred exactly 2 months after the famous 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO incident, where unidentified radar blips and glowing crafts famously swarmed the White House. Were they connected? Was Flatwoods the crash landing of one of those very ships? We may never know. 70 years later, the dense woods of Flatwoods, West Virginia, keep their secrets. The monster has since become a pop culture icon, celebrated with local festivals and roadside souvenirs. But beneath the folklore, the t-shirts, and the government denials lies a chilling reality. On one cold autumn night, a group of regular, hardworking people looked into the dark, and something highly advanced, highly toxic, and completely non-human looked back. What do you think they saw on that hill? A frightened owl, a Soviet weapon, or something from beyond the stars? Until next time, keep watching the skies and stay out of the dark. Some secrets are meant to stay buried, but we'll keep digging regardless. If you have your own theories on this case, I'd love to read them in the comments below. Until the next mystery, sleep well, and keep watching the dark.